Hello, welcome to the episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. Today is Tuesday, September 5th. Hope everyone's having a good day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. We are back here on a Tuesday program, fresh off of a Labor Day Monday. Hopefully everybody is enjoying their day so far. We've got a lot to get into today on the podcast as we're going to be breaking down my final division in the AFC, and tomorrow we'll close things out with my division predictions with the NFC West. But today we'll finish things out in the AFC. Football is in the air. Football season, Chiefs-Lions on Thursday night at Arrowhead Stadium will open up on Thursday. That is less than 48 hours, actually a little over 48 hours away. We are 6 days away from Jets-Bills at MetLife. And we are 5 days away from the first official full Sunday of football. And that also means Giants-Cowboys on Sunday Night Football at MetLife Stadium. So two big primetime games coming up if you're a Jets and a Giants fan. And football will kick off on Thursday. It is in the air. It is right around the corner. We are 2 days away from the start of the NFL regular season. You've got more college football coming up this weekend. Cannot wait for this weekend. This will be one of the most exciting jam-packed sports weekends in a while. Football is back. If you're a Jets and a Giants fan, you're pumped up. A lot of excitement in the air and a lot to be excited about if you're a football fan going into this week. So we'll open up today's show talking a little bit of football. We'll continue my division predictions to open up today's show. So today's the AFC West. Tomorrow we'll close things out with the NFC West. So right now I've got 5 teams making the playoffs in the AFC, and I've got 5 teams making the playoffs in the NFC. I've got 2 spots left, 2 teams I've got coming out of the AFC West, and I've got 2 teams coming out of the NFC West, which will get to that tomorrow. So stay tuned for my predictions there. We'll open up the show predicting the AFC West standings to close out the 4 divisions in the AFC. We'll get to a little bit of baseball as well later on. We're going to talk about the New York Yankees and their big series win, big series sweep, I should say, over the weekend against the Houston Astros. Went into Minute Maid Park in Houston and absolutely dominated. The young kids took over and won a series against Houston, swept the series against Houston, I should say, for the first time in a very long time at Minute Maid Park, as the young kids, specifically Jason Dominguez, Austin Wells, Aaron Judge isn't necessarily a young kid, but he stepped up. A lot of guys stepped up. Yankees get the series sweep and a very good weekend. The best weekend, I think, of the season. If you're a New York Yankees fan, you walk away optimistic for the future. We'll break it all down a little bit later on. We'll also get you set up for the Yankees-Tigers tonight and the Mets-Nationals. Mets hit the road in D.C. for a quick 2-game stop against the Nationals, and the Yankees open up a homestand, starting with a 3 games against the Detroit Tigers beginning tonight. Dominguez will make his Yankee Stadium debut. He'll make his official pinstripes debut, as obviously his first 3 games were on the road. But, he is as good as advertised up to this point through his first 3 games. So we'll get you that. We'll get into that later on. But we'll start today with some NFL. So you know the drill. We've been doing this for the past week. Monday of last week, I did the AFC East. Tuesday, I did the NFC East. Wednesday, I did the AFC North. Thursday, I did the NFC North. Friday, I did the AFC South. Yesterday, I did the NFC South. If you haven't checked that video out, definitely go check it out. I apologize. It was up later yesterday. Schedule kind of got a little all over the place yesterday, so didn't get the video up until last night around 7-ish. So I apologize for that, but there was a video up breaking down the NFC South standing predictions. So I got that up last night. Today, we're going to be back in the AFC, breaking down the AFC West. And then tomorrow, we're going to finish out with my 8th and final division prediction, and that will be the NFC West. So we'll start today with the AFC. So this is my final division in the AFC. Right now, I've got 5 teams in the AFC making the playoffs, and I'll break it down for you. So from the AFC East, I've got the Jets and the Bills. From the AFC North, I've got the Bengals and the Ravens. And from the AFC South, I've got the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I've got 2 teams coming out of the AFC West. Same thing for the NFC as well. I've got 5 teams so far, but we'll get to that tomorrow. So last year, the AFC West played out like this. So for the second time, Mahomes and company took home the division and winning the Super Bowl. Now, they took home the division way more than 2 times, but I mean that in terms of taking home the division and also going on to win the Super Bowl, the second of Mahomes' career, the 3rd appearance. They got the job done. So Kansas City finished in first, 14-3. Chargers finished in second with a record of 10-7. The Raiders finished in third with a record of 6-11. And finishing in last, one of the biggest disappointments of the season last year, although I kind of expected them to struggle. But that was the Denver Broncos finishing in last with a record of 5-12. And it's funny when you look at this division. We looked at the division last year, and I remember, sitting here last year talking about it, probably exactly almost a year ago to the day, that I was talking about the AFC West being one of the best divisions in football. And I'm not saying that it's not a good division, but it's certainly kind of, it's not, using the word flipped upside down is not correct. But when you look back at last year and you said you can make a case for all 4 teams to make the playoffs, and you had 2 teams make the playoffs and 2 of the 3rd and 4th place teams finished well below 500, it was kind of a little bit of an underwhelming division in terms of we thought the Raiders and the Broncos, even though I thought the Broncos were going to struggle, I believe I still had them finishing over 500. We thought this was going to be a division where everybody had a chance to potentially go out and win, and everybody thought it was a wide open division without Tyreek Hill being on Kansas City, obviously going over to Miami and spending last year with them, and obviously now spending his time with the Miami Dolphins. So a lot of people, including myself, thought last year this division could potentially be up for grabs. And you look at the division this year, and it's almost like, man, you don't love you don't love 2 of the 4 teams in the division, but you still do like the top 2 teams in the division. And it's certainly an interesting division. It's certainly a division that you went into last year and you said you can make an argument for all 4 teams to make to make the playoffs. And I wouldn't say make an argument for all 4 to make deep playoff runs, but you could say all 4 of them could have been playoff teams. Obviously, that wasn't going to happen, but you can make that argument that all 4 had potential. And there was only 2, and the 3rd and 4th place team only combined to muster up 11 wins combined. So Chiefs won the division, obviously Chargers won the division. So out of what I thought there was going to be 3 teams coming out of this division. There was only ended up being 2 teams come out of the division. Chiefs obviously went on to win the Super Bowl. Chargers went on to blow the big wild card lead against Jacksonville. And that was kind of how it went for them. You look at the Chargers this season, some people have questions, but we'll get into them. Either way, let's break it down. So first place, I've got Kansas City. Last year, I was down on Kansas City going into the year. I thought there was a chance, they got knocked out by Cincinnati in the 2021 postseason, 2021 postseason in the AFC Championship game. Cincinnati went on to win the Super Bowl. They lost Tyreek Hill in that offseason. I went into last year, I was down on the Kansas City Chiefs. I didn't think that they would miss the playoffs. I thought they'd still make the playoffs. I thought they'd still have a great chance because as long as Patrick Mahomes is playing at the level he's playing at, this team, in my eyes, is going to be in the Super Bowl conversation every single season. That's just what Mahomes does. He's dominant, and we've seen this before. So I was wrong about Kansas City last year. I didn't think they would go on and be 14-3, but they did. They went out. They won a Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill. They still have Travis Kelce. Mahomes is still out of this world crazy. They were a very well-coached team with Andy Reid. And you look at this season, and I don't see where you can make even any sort of a case that the Chargers should finish in first, or the Raiders or Broncos should even come close. Like, the Chiefs dominate this division. They own this division. Last year, when we thought the division was up for grabs, they went out and they went 14-3 and comfortably won the division title and went on to win a Super Bowl. Like, Kansas City shut up all the haters last year. Mahomes proved that he can win without Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill's still trying to prove that he can win without Patrick Mahomes with Tua in Miami. Like where this Kansas City team's at. Again, I don't have to dissect this team. We know what Mahomes is. As long as he continues to play at the level he's playing at, he's going to go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. They've still got Travis Kelce. They've got some young receivers. They got a veteran, Marquez Scantling, but they've got Sky Moore. They've got Kadarius Toney. I know he's got some injury concerns, but Sky Moore's young, talented. Obviously had a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl, or touchdown reception, I should say, in the Super Bowl last year. Defensively, I know there's some drama around the Chris Jones situation. Will he play? What's going to happen with the contract? How does that all play out? I know there's some drama there. But the defense was solid last season. The offense is still the big strength of this team, but the defense was solid. I think when you look at just going back to the offense too, you look at the run game with Isaiah Pacheco, who really kind of flew onto the scene last year, was a late round pick from Rutgers. Was a big piece in the Super Bowl, was a big piece all year long for them. Look, they have Patrick Mahomes, they have Travis Kelce. That is one of the biggest 1-2 punches, one of the best combos in the league right now. I think it probably is the best quarterback-receiver, quarterback-tight end combo right now. I know there's a lot of other great ones, and maybe there's some developing, But right now, those two are the dominant 1-2 punch in football, or in baseball rather, or football. Why was I going to say? I don't know why I was trying to say dominant 1-2 punch in baseball. But you get what I'm saying. Dominant 1-2 punch in football. Mahomes, Travis Kelce. You like what you see. Look, there's not much that has to be said when it comes to this team. Mahomes is great. Kelce's great. They'll be winning the division again. Their floor's 10-7. I don't think this team's going to even hit 10-7. I don't think this team is, for some reason, going to fall off. I know maybe if the media wants to create some unnecessary drama about, some unnecessary drama around Chris Jones, sure, it is drama. It is a contract situation. He's one of your best. He's the heart and soul of the defense. But when you have an offense as dominant as Kansas City, they're going to be right back in the conversation. So 10-7 is their floor. Ceiling's 14-3. I think their prediction for the season is 13-4. All right, so now we go to the Chargers. So the Chargers I have in second place. I know a lot of people look at this Chargers team and say, that they, they're not very well coached. There's obviously a lot of concerns about Brandon Staley. But I look, when you look at the talent on this roster, and they were able to make the playoffs last year. And again, Chiefs 13-4, best quarterback in football, one of the best, most well-coached teams, have already done it twice in 3 tries, winning a Super Bowl with Mahomes. They're going to finish in first. But I do have the Chargers in second. I know there's a lot of people out there that think the Chargers are going to be a disappointing team this year. And I know there's a lot of people out there that think there's actually going to be 3 teams that come out of the AFC, or 3 teams that come out of the AFC North, rather. And that's going to be, the Browns are going to be that final team, or the Steelers. I think there's going to be 2 teams from each division other than the AFC South. That's just the way I view it. I still think the Chargers are a playoff team, and really the talent speaks for itself. They've got Herbert. They've got one of the best running backs in football in Austin Eckler. They've got a phenomenal receiving core. They've got a phenomenal 1-2 punch and receiving core of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Gerald Everett's a solid piece at tight end. They've got Joey Bosa. They've got Khalil Mack. I know not quite the same player he once was, but still a solid linebacker. Asante Samuel. They've got Derwin James, J.C. Jackson. I know, obviously, didn't struggle a little bit, but you still got him. Like, you've got a lot of pieces on that team. You got a very good secondary. You've got, they've got a lot of guys in their prime. Like Derwin James, prime. Joey Bosa's in his prime. Justin Herbert's entering the prime. Keenan Allen's probably more towards the end of his prime, but still has prime years left. Mike Williams is a very solid receiver. Like, this team has a lot of pieces. And don't forget, Rashawn Slater is back, and he's ready to go. I think when you look at this Chargers team last year, obviously the offensive line with Rashawn Slater is significantly better and takes a big hit without him. So I really like where this team's at. I understand the coaching concerns. I understand the issues around Brandon Staley, and there's a lot of concerns when it comes to, the playoffs and stuff. Look, I'm not saying this team's going to make a deep run. I'm not. Potentially, they're just not built for the playoffs. But I don't know how you can sit here and look at a team with this much talent who won 10 games last year, and they're only getting better in terms of Herbert for another year. He continues to improve. He continues to get better. Like, I don't see how this team can miss the playoffs. I just don't see it. I think their floor is 8-9. I do think their floor is lower than others, and that is because the coaching concerns are real. I don't foresee them missing the playoffs because of their coach. There's a lot of teams that you question the coaching that went on to make playoff runs. There is. So I still like this team a lot. I think their ceiling's 13-4. I think they're going to challenge the Chiefs. I don't think they're going to win. I don't think they're going to win the division, but they're certainly going to be in the conversation when it comes December. And I have them finishing 12-5 and finishing in second in division. This team's too talented. Their offense is phenomenal. Herbert's one of the top 5 quarterbacks I believe in football. And as long as he's out there, as long as he's healthy, as long as Keenan Allen can stay healthy, and remember that too, Keenan Allen missed time last year. Like, if he could stay healthy, this team could be a 12-win team. This team won games last year, missing some big-time pieces, and they still made the playoffs. Coaching's obviously a concern, no doubt about that. But with the talent on this roster, you cannot argue what this roster is capable of when it comes to the talent. So Chargers finishing in second at 12-2. Herbert, another big season. All right, so this is where it gets interesting because to be honest with you, I don't believe in either of these teams. Spoiler alert. I have the Chargers and obviously now, Chiefs and Chargers are my final 2 AFC playoff teams. But we'll get to that a little bit later on, officially laying out my 7 AFC playoff teams. Third place, I have the Broncos. I think you can honestly switch these however you want. You want to put the Broncos third. You want to put the Raiders fourth. Fine. That's the way I did it. You want to put the Raiders fourth, Raiders third, Broncos last. You could do that. Neither of these teams are going to make the playoffs. Where they stand in the standings, I don't think is going to mean a whole lot. When you look at both these teams, they regressed. I look at it. The only thing that separates to me when it comes to the Broncos is coaching, and that's Sean Payton. I think Sean Payton's a solid coach. I think he's a better coach than Josh McDaniels, and I think that's what separates these two teams, is the coaching on Denver. They've got the better coach. Josh McDaniels is lost. The team has quit on him before the season even started. But we'll stick here with the Broncos. I know there's a lot of people out there that believe the Broncos are in for a bounce-back season. But this team, you know what the Broncos have turned into? The Broncos have turned into a giant meme. That's what they've turned into. You've got Russell Wilson with the Let Russ Cook, Broncos country, let's ride. He's turned into a giant meme. You can't talk about Russell Wilson without bringing up the Let Russ Cook or the Broncos country, let's ride, or whatever, one of his stupid things that he has said, right? All of those things. This team is a meme. Russell Wilson's not the same player he once was. You saw the decline a couple years ago. His final 2 years in Seattle, he was slowly declining. He declined more last year. He's not the same player he once was. You can give him the greatest coach of all time. I think they'll be better than what they were last year. I'll tell you right now, I have them finishing at 7-10. But I don't think they're going to be a team that is going to go out there and after a 5-win campaign last year, going to bounce back and win 12 games. And Sean Payton's all of us going to turn Russell Wilson back into prime Russell Wilson, and they're going to go out there, win 12 games, and fight for a division title. I just don't see that happening. I think the two teams in front of them are significantly more talented, have significantly better quarterbacks, and have significantly more talent. As I mentioned, significantly more talented. And they've got better quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, to me, is a shell of himself, and he's declining as the years and years go by. And I mentioned this when the Broncos went out and got him last year. You saw the slight decline the last 2 years in Seattle. Last year it got even worse. It might get even worse this year. I think they're better than what they were last year. I don't think they're a 5-win team again. I think you'll get a little bit more production out of the team just because they are more well-coached with Sean Payton. But, this team is in a loaded AFC. You just can't trust Russell Wilson. Not nearly the same player he once was. So, I have the Broncos finishing in third. I think their floor is 6-11. Ceiling is 10-7. The only way I think they get to that 10-7 mark, which I don't believe will even be enough to get to the playoffs, but the only way they get to that point is if something clicks between Peyton and Russell Wilson and they go out and win 9-10 games. I just don't think Russell Wilson's good enough to have. I don't think he has 12 games. I don't think he has 12 wins inside of him. I just don't. And let's be honest here. There seems to be some locker room stuff. Russell Wilson having his own office, having his own floor, not being a great leader. There's something off in that locker room. I don't love it. So Denver finishing 7-10. I know they've got some pieces with Judy and Cortland Sutton. And, defensively, their secondary stacked with guys like Kareem Jackson, Pat Surtain, Justin Simmons. Alex Singleton was a very nice piece for them last season in his first year in Denver. Linebacker, obviously, was up there near the top of the league in tackles. All that stuff. I know they've got some pieces, but I don't love the quarterback. And I think the coach is fine. I lost a lot of respect for Sean Payton after what he said. But let's be honest here. I think Sean Payton's okay. But what has Sean Payton done without Drew Brees? What has he done? Those last few years without Drew Brees in New Orleans were a train wreck. What is he now going to do with another washed quarterback? Probably not a whole lot. So Broncos finishing 7-10. The only reason I have the Broncos behind or the head of the Raiders is not because of talent, because I'll tell you what, the Raiders I actually think, if you had to ask me right now, who would you trust more to go out and win more games? I'd take Jimmy G over Russell Wilson right now, and I'd also take this Raiders receiving core over the Broncos because they've got Devontae Adams, who's one of the best receivers in football. I know they've got Javonte Williams in Denver, running back solid, coming back this season. But I'd still probably take Josh Jacobs. So this Raiders team, on paper, you look at their offense, and you say, man, Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, they added Austin Hooper, Josh Jacobs. Jimmy G's fine. He's okay. But the issue is they don't have a coach. Josh McDaniels is terrible. I don't love their defense. I like their offense a lot in terms of the pieces, but outside of Chandler Jones and Max Crosby are kind of the heart and soul, and Marcus Peters, who's getting up there in age, I don't love their defense. I understand, again, Max Crosby's heart and soul. You got guys like Chandler Jones, all that stuff, but they don't have a coach. And there's internal issues with this organization. When you look at the Raiders and you look at the way it ended last year with Derek Carr, where they went 6-11, I think they got worse at quarterback. I'd take Derek Carr over Jimmy G. So I actually think they declined at quarterback, even though I think Jimmy G, I think the worst quarterback in his division is Russell Wilson. I think that's pretty obvious in my opinion. I think I'd take Jimmy G over Russell Wilson right now. I just think Russell Wilson's washed up. I think Jimmy G still got a little bit left in the tank. Not that Jimmy G is a game changer. He's a game manager and needs to be on a team with a good defense, but this team has given up on their coach. Devontae Adams, guys, the locker room was upset, turned off by the Derek Carr situation. He was a leader in that locker room. He was turned off by that. It was just a mess. It was a train wreck last year. And, I think it's just, it was an absolute train wreck last season. Train wreck. And you went into last year, I thought this team would be a playoff team. I had 3 teams making this out of this division. It was obviously the Chiefs, Chargers, and Raiders. I thought the Broncos would miss the playoffs last year, and I was right about that. But the Raiders were a disaster. A lot of that was coaching. And, Josh McDaniels, we all thought he'd learn from his first appearance in Denver. This is just another failed coach from the Bill Belichick coaching tree. We've seen this countless times. So I don't think the Raiders are going to do a whole lot this year. I don't like the coaching situation. There's something also off in that locker room when it comes to the trust in the coach and the way the organization handled the Derek Carr situation. It was well respected around the organization. I think their floor is 4-13. I think it's the lowest because I think there's potential that this thing really is a disaster. I mean, they were a 6-win team a year ago. I don't think they really got better in any spot. At least Denver tried to get better at coach, and I think they did that. I know Denver last year went 5-12, and I do have them improving 2 wins at 7-10. I don't think the Raiders. I think the Raiders got worse, specifically coaching. They should have got rid of McDaniels this past offseason. I don't know why they're letting it ride again. I think there's a good chance Devontae Adams a Jet by the end of all this, hopefully. But Raiders 4-13. I think their ceiling is 9-8. My actual prediction's 5-12. I think their ceiling is 9-8. Look, the best thing they do is Jimmy G goes out there, does his job. They find some belief in the coach. He's got the weapons around him, and they go out and win 8-9 games. I don't think this team's going to explode and win 12 games. I just don't see it. They've got talent. They don't got the coach. The locker room seems off. Just not a good situation in Vegas. Seems like things are going to go haywire there. So 4th place, the Raiders. So overall, I have this division. I have the Chiefs finishing in 1st with a record of 13-4. I have the Chargers finishing in 2nd with a record of 12-5. I've got the Broncos finishing in 3rd with a record of 7-10. And I've got the Raiders finishing in 4th with a record of 5-12. So the Chiefs and the Chargers, I have getting into the playoffs. So that means my final 7 teams in the AFC. In the AFC East, I've got the Jets and the Bills, and I've got the Dolphins and the Patriots missing the playoffs. In the NFC, or the AFC, that's the AFC East. In the AFC North, I've got the Bengals and the Ravens, and I've got the Steelers and the Browns just missing the postseason. In the AFC South, I've got the Jaguars making the playoffs, Texans, Titans, and Colts all missing the postseason. And my final 2 playoff teams in the AFC West are the Chiefs and the Chargers. I would go on to say that the Chiefs probably go on and get the 1 seed here. I think I had the Bengals also finishing 13-4, so I'll give the Chiefs the tiebreaker because they'll probably finish with the 1 seed. I'd imagine the postseason's going to have to go through Arrowhead yet again because it has for a very long time now since Mahomes has really stepped foot on that field. So give me those 7 teams to make the AFC playoffs. The surprising teams that I don't have in, a lot of people think the Steelers and the Browns are going to make it. I think the Browns are just going to be outside looking. I think the Steelers are still a year away. So those are the 2 teams. I don't think Miami's going to make it. I don't think there's any surprises out of the AFC South. I don't think the Titans, Texans, or Colts make it. I don't think that comes by much of a surprise. AFC West, I don't think there's much surprises there. I know some people believe in Denver, but I don't think many people believe in them to actually make the playoffs, and Vegas is a disaster. And other than that, that's what I've got. So those are my 7 teams. Comment down below, who are your 7 playoff teams, and who do you have taking home the number 1 seed, and what does your AFC West look like? Mine, Chiefs, Chargers coming out of the division and making the postseason similar to last year. And I just have the Broncos and the Raiders flipping spots. Broncos finishing 3rd, Raiders finishing in 4th. But either way, both missing the postseason. All right, so now I move on to a little bit of baseball here. We've got a lot to get into when it comes to the New York Yankees. So quite the weekend. Football season is right around the corner. As a Yankee fan, you kind of shifted focus. As a New York baseball fan, I know I have, I've still watched the games. And, I'll always be loyal and I'll watch the games, through all these garbage years with the New York Jets. I've sat there and watched every game of that 2-14 season. I sat there and watched every game from the Todd Bowles era. Obviously, the 2015 season was exciting, but after that, it was a disaster. I sat there and watched the end of the Rex Ryan era with the Geno Smith, Michael Vick days. That was a complete disaster. So I sat there and watched those games, sat there and watched the Bowles era, sat there and watched the Gaze era, sat there and watched the 2-14 season with Gaze, the 4-13 season the year after that, the 7-10 season last year where they lost 6 straight. So, I'm loyal as I can. I like to consider myself a very loyal fan. I'll sit there and watch the games even as they're garbage. But my point here is, and I don't want to sound negative off the bat, but a lot of people have kind of wrote the Yankees off. Like a lot of, and rightfully so. I don't blame you. I mean, I've watched the games. I have been watching the games, but before this weekend, I wasn't watching them with the same energy and passion because the games just didn't mean much. Like, I watched the games, but I wouldn't get upset. Like, I was getting upset earlier in the season, but now that these games don't mean a whole lot, I kind of stopped getting upset because I realized, we got to focus on 2024, and that's the future, and nothing's really going to happen this year up until this weekend where you got the series sweep of Houston. And I'll admit, I had a blast watching the Yankees this weekend playing against the Houston Astros. All of the things all the bad moments you think about in Houston, whether it was the 2017 Game 7 of the ALCS where they lose 1 game short of the World Series, whether it was 2019 where Chapman hits the home run, or Altuve hits the home run off of Chapman. I was about to say Chapman hits the home run off of Altuve. How great would that have been? Either way, Game 6 of the ALCS in 2019, Altuve hits the home run off of Chapman. Chapman walks off the mound smiling. Whether it was last year, not necessarily at Minute Maid Park, but whether it was just last season where the Astros were celebrating at Yankee Stadium after sweeping the Yankees in the ALCS. So many disastrous moments over the past couple seasons. You even go back to 2021, the series just before the break. The Yankees were about to sweep the Astros, and they blew a 4-run lead. I believe it was in the 9th inning, and they ended up losing that game. So many moments over the last 6 years have the New York Yankees, especially since Boone has taken over, have the New York Yankees been an absolute disaster against the Houston Astros and have lost so many heartbreaking games against the Houston Astros. 1 game away from the World Series, 2 games away from the World Series, getting swept in the ALCS, and even earlier this season. Not that this was as much of a heartbreak as the others, because they were just games in early August, but a 4-game series against Houston, the Yankees won the first 2 games, and then they lost the final 2. So even it was like that. It's like you should have took 3 or 4 there, and they found a way to lose the final 2 games. And especially the last game of that series when I was in attendance, and they blew it. So it's funny because the Yankees, everybody kind of wrote the Yankees off in terms of, don't care about them. And again, I don't blame you. I won't call you a casual fan. I understand if you stopped watching this team because it's hard to watch 162 games during dog days of summer, even if your team's good. I'll admit it's a grind. Not every night is a lot of fun. I'll admit that. But especially it's a grind if your team's out of the postseason and there's nothing to be excited about. But over this weekend, I had a blast. And I got to admit, watching the games this weekend, it felt like I was watching playoff games. Like they were going on the road in Houston. There was an energy in that crowd. 2 outs, the crowd would get up, get loud. 2 strikes. When Dominguez stepped up there, crowd was kind of getting loud. Just struck Judge out. Everyone was all pumped up. Dominguez steps up behind Judge in the 3-hole, takes I mean, absolutely launches a shot to right field. His first at bat, he launches one to left field, a little Oppo Taco in his first at bat. It just shows you the power that he brings to the table to not only go out there and hit 2 home runs in 3 games, but go out there in his first MLB at bat as a lefty against Justin Verlander, a future Hall of Famer, one of the best pitchers of all time, a Cy Young winner last season. One of the best pitchers, will be a Hall of Famer. To go out there and hit an Oppo shot in his first game in the MLB, in his first game as a Yankee, was awesome. It was phenomenal. It was so exciting. He had 3 hits this weekend and 4 RBIs. And out of those 3 hits, 2 of them were home runs. He walks away from this weekend hitting .231 with a .692 slugging and a .923 OPS. 3 home runs. He's 3 for 13 with 2 home runs already. The power showed off, taking Verlander opposite field as a lefty in your first ever MLB at bat. That had me sold. And then Austin Wells steps up, and he had a really nice weekend, gathering a couple base knocks as well, throwing a guy out in his first opportunity. 2 for 10 with a double, a run scored, 2 RBIs. And I know the batting average right now are a little bit low, but these guys are only 10 to 13 at-bats in. But that's how exciting that's how exciting it's been. You know, Wells, who we've talked about, the defense has been, it's average at best. It's not great, but he goes out there, and his first throwdown, he throws the guy out at second. He gathers 2 hits, both of them in their first at-bats. And then Dominguez, also getting his first hit. Obviously, first hit of his career was a home run, hitting another home run on Sunday night to blow the game open and win 6-1. Like, these games were just so exciting. These games were so, got you pumped up. This was the best weekend of Yankee baseball all season long. All season long. Especially with the way it ended in Detroit, where you had a chance for the sweep, and you had the Glaber error, and you blew that game. With the way it ended, you went into the series, and you're like, okay, you got the young guys going up, but you're going up against Houston. If you can find a way to at least take one of these games and see positives out of the young kids, that's great. To go in there and sweep, that was phenomenal. So I got to give credit for this Yankee team. I really do. I got to give credit to the young guys. I wish it happened earlier. This should have happened back in July. This should have happened back in early August. Because let's be honest here, when you look back at these young guys actually make your team better. The Yankees needed a jolt of energy, and they got it. Is it too little too late? Probably. I know when you look at the wild card standings right now, they're 68 and 69. They're 8 games back. They currently have 9 games left against the Tigers and the Royals. Or 6 games against the Tigers and the Royals. They also have 3 games against the Pirates, 3 games against the Royals, and now 3 games against the Tigers. So, ideally, if you can find a way to go 7-2, 8-1 in those 9 games, sweep 2 of those series, potentially sweep the Tigers because you won 3 or 4 against them, and potentially sweep the Pirates, that'd be great. I don't think this team makes the playoffs. At least they're still kind of playing meaningful baseball. Playoffs still isn't my hope. Playoffs is my hope. Everybody still wants to make the playoffs. The Yankees have 25 games left. They're 60 and 69. They're going to have to go on some magical run where they might have to go like 20-5. Like 20-5 will get you to 88 wins. Because the Texas Rangers currently hold that last wild card spot. You also have 6 games against Toronto. If you want to even fight for a playoff spot, you would have to find a way to go at least 4-2 in those 6 games against Toronto. Because you need to at least gain at least 2-3 games on them. So there is a lot of importance. Boston's also still in front of them. They got a 4-game set next week against Boston. In Boston. So you have to find a way to take 3 or 4. The Yankees from here on out. Because again, and I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I want to make that clear. And obviously the hope, that would be great. Like if the Yankees run the table here and they go out and win 20 of their next 25 remaining games, and they go on some magical 12-game win streak, and this is just the start where they're 7-3 in their last 10, and they win 20 of their next 25, that'd be great. And that would be historical. They find a way to creep into the playoffs as the last playoff team, and they figure out a way to get to the wild card, whoever they play. That'd be phenomenal. That'd be great. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's very unrealistic. They would have to almost win every single game from here on out. They would. And you have to realize, too, there's still going to be growing pains when it comes to the young kids. But I love what I saw from Dominguez and Wells. And even in the last game, Peraza stepped up. But at least it gives you something to watch for. Look, again, I want to make this clear. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, and I'm not going to be I'm going to be disappointed if they miss the playoffs. We've already been disappointed, but I think some people as Yankee fans, I wouldn't get your hopes up for the postseason. There's still 8 games back. There's a lot of work you got to do. You have to sweep Detroit, and you also need some help. You need teams like Texas and Toronto to lose. And unfortunately, Toronto's got a schedule coming up where they won last night against the A's. I know it was in 10 innings, but they got 2 more against the A's, and then they got 3 games against the Royals. So they do have a lot of competition. I do know to end it, they do have the Rays, and they've got the Rays a couple times. They've also got the Yankees, mixed in there. So another competition gets a little bit better, but they need a lot of help. The Yankees, as much as some of it's in their control, they need a lot of help. They need Texas to lose a ton, and they need Toronto to lose a lot. And they need to take care of their own business. If they want any chance of making the postseason, they're going to have to probably win. They're going to have to go at least 18 and I'm trying to think, because Texas is 76-61 right now. So Yankees are 68-69. They're 8 games back of them in both the win and the loss column. They're just a complete 8 games back. They would have to go, they can win 8 more games within those 3 series against, they can easily go 7-2, 8-1 against the Pirates, Royals, and Tigers, even if this team didn't have the young guys, because they took 3 of 4 against the Tigers without the young players, so they can do that. But it'll be interesting. I don't know. I don't think they make the postseason, but it's great. It's a lot of fun to watch over the weekend. As a Yankee fan, it gives you some excitement for the future at least. And it gives you a feeling of, what? We can, what? You got to feel confident for the future. The future is bright. We've got a lot of prospects. There's a lot of excitement there. And there's a lot to like with this team, specifically the young guys. And as long as they continue to grow and continue to get better, that's all you can ask for. So a lot to like there over the weekend. Good weekend for the Yankees. Hit me up on the comments down below. What are your thoughts on this weekend? Your takeaways, your overall feeling, and is there any believers out there that the Yankees are going to go on some crazy run, like 20 of their next 25? 20-5. 20-5 would get them to finish 88-74. Do they go 88-74 and make the playoffs? Because then you have to hope. Texas is 76-61. So Texas, 76-61. They also have 25 games left. So Texas would have to win less than 12 games. Because I think the tiebreaker would the Yankees took 2 or 3. Either way, Texas would have to go 11-14 in these final 25 games to the Yankees would have to go 20-5 potentially. Or the Texas Rangers completely fall off, lose 8 games in a row, which I just don't see happening. I know they've obviously lost last night to the Astros. They've got 2 more against the Astros, but then after this, they've still got the A's coming up. They've still got the Guardians. They've got the Angels. So they've still got some teams. They do have the Mariners who have been hot. They do have the Red Sox who are beatable. So I just don't think I don't know. I mean, I know a lot. Look, I don't, again, I've ranted on this team. I said there's no chance. I still don't think there's a chance, but you look at it and it's better than where they were. And at least it gives you some hope, again, for the future. I'm still watching for the future. I'm not going to be extremely disappointed if they miss the playoffs because we're already disappointed. But I think a lot of fans out there that say, they're going to make the postseason. I wouldn't get your hopes up. And I don't want to sound negative, but just watch. Enjoy watching these young players. This is almost like spring. This is almost like an extended spring training for next season, seeing what you got in the young guys. And so far, it looks great. So tonight you got Cole on the bump. He is 12-4, the 2.95 ERA. He will go up against Alex Fideo, however you pronounce his name. Apologize for that. He's 2-5 with a 4.89 ERA. So the Yankees will look to take game 1 of a 3-game set at Yankee Stadium. A 3-game set, an overall 6-game homestand starting tonight, 3 against Detroit. And as for the Mets, they will open up a quick 2-game stop in D.C. They open up, I believe it is a 6-game road trip. They'll have a 5-game road trip, 2 in D.C., day off Thursday, 3 in Minnesota, a little interleague action after that. But division matchup tonight, Jose Quintana versus Patrick Corbin. Quintana's 1-5 with a 3.26 ERA. Corbin's 9-12 with a 4.90 ERA. So we'll see what the Mets do tonight. We'll see what the Yankees do as well. 63-74, the Mets are. 68-69, the Yankees are. So just when you thought it was all over for the Yankees, they say, hold on, we'll give you a reason to watch. But they better show up. They better show up this series. They can't go into Yankee Stadium with a renewed hope around this team, at least for the future, and lose 2-3. They got to at least win the series. I think you got to sweep. Again, if you want any shot at making the postseason, you got to go some crazy number. You got to win 18, 19, 20 games out of your next 25, and you basically almost have to sweep the Pittsburgh, Kansas City, and Detroit starting tonight. At the least, you have to go like 7-2 against those three teams. You have to. You can't go like 5-4 in those 9 games. You can't go like even 6-3 won't cut it. You have to go like 7-2, 8-1, or better, or just sweep all 3 of those teams. We'll see. They swept the Astros, so I guess they could sweep anybody with the young guys. Who knows? Anyway, that'll do it for the podcast here today. As always, hope you enjoyed it. Tomorrow's podcast will probably be up a little bit later on in the day, so stay tuned for that. Scheduling now this time of year gets a little bit later on in the day, but I've got a lot more content coming your way. I'll have a Jets season preview podcast up in a little bit on In the Trench with Gang Green on Apple Podcasts. You can also find it now on Spotify, Google Podcasts, so wherever you get your podcasts, that'll be up there. And later on this week on this channel and on my In the Trench with Gang Green podcast, I'm going to have a Bills content creator on each week of the season. I'm going to have a person on from the opposing team who covers the opposing team. So this week I've got a Bills content creator on. Next week I got somebody for the Cowboys, and every week we'll discuss. So that'll be up on this channel in video form. I'll also have it up on audio form on my In the Trench with Gang Green podcast. So stay tuned for that. A lot more content coming your way. Football season's upon us. A little Yankees baseball tonight. Hard Knocks episode number 5 tonight. So that should be exciting. The finale of Hard Knocks. Crazy to think that Hard Knocks is already ending. It's bittersweet because I've loved Hard Knocks. It's been a lot of fun. It's bittersweet because you don't want to see it go, but it also means that the season's approaching because training camp's ending. So that'll do it for an episode of Bubbs on Sports podcast. Thank you all so much for watching. Appreciate all the support. As always, hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.